On December 4, 2024, inside one of San Francisco's largest and busiest hospitals, a man walked calmly down a hallway, holding a deadly secret. He wasn't a stranger. He wasn't trespassing. He was a regular patient. A familiar face. Someone the staff recognized. Someone they had treated before. Minutes later, that same man would violently attack a social worker, stabbing him repeatedly in the neck and shoulder, inside a place meant for healing. 2 days later, that social worker would die. His name was Alberto Rangel, a man described as kind, devoted, compassionate, loved by coworkers, loved by patients. Someone who went to work every day simply to help people. Before we dive deeper into the shocking case, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss any of the real-life stories we uncover here. This is the full story of the killing of Alberto Rangel, a tragedy that shook San Francisco, exposed major failures in hospital security, and raised questions about how a predictable threat was allowed to turn into a murder. Today, we go deep into the timeline, the warning signs, the suspect, the chaos inside the hospital, and the heart-wrenching aftermath. This is the hospital murder no one saw coming. Except, some people say they did. Before we talk about the attack, we need to talk about the victim, because this story is not just a crime. It's a tragedy centered around a man who dedicated his life to helping others. 51-year-old Alberto Rangel wasn't just a social worker. He was a counselor, an advocate, a mentor, and sometimes even a lifeline for people living with HIV and AIDS. He ran support groups. He stayed late to help patients. He fought for their access to medication, housing, mental health support, whatever they needed. Coworkers said he was the kind of person who made people feel safe and welcome the moment they walked into a room. A nurse who worked closely with him said, "He was the most open-hearted, loving, non-judgmental, kind person." Another colleague described him as enthusiastic about his job, devoted, someone who changed people's lives. Rangel was the kind of worker every hospital needs, and exactly the kind of person no one expected to face violence at work. The man accused of killing Rangel is 34-year-old Wilfredo Tortolero Arriechi. To the staff, he wasn't a stranger. He was a regular patient at Ward 86, the hospital's HIV/AIDS clinic. This matters, because it means the attack didn't come from someone random wandering in off the street. It came from someone known to the system, known to the staff, and already a person of concern. On the day of the incident, he had come to the hospital for an appointment. But according to multiple sources, something was off. He reportedly made threats toward a doctor. That threat was serious enough that a sheriff's deputy was called to provide security for that doctor. Let me repeat that. A deputy was already present in the hospital because the suspect had made threats before the stabbing happened. The warning signs were there. The story doesn't begin in Ward 86. It actually begins earlier in the day, at a different clinic entirely. According to reports, Tortolero first went to the San Francisco City Clinic, looking for a doctor he was targeting. But that doctor wasn't there. So the suspect left the clinic and went to Zuckerberg's San Francisco General Hospital, where Ward 86 is located. This moment is important because it shows intent. He wasn't randomly upset. He wasn't confused about who he was looking for. He was searching for someone. The Los Angeles Times reports that he had previously made threats to a doctor on staff. And on December 4th, instead of calming down, those threats escalated. Hospital staff alerted security. A sheriff's deputy was assigned to protect the doctor. But here's the heartbreaking part. While protecting one person, another became vulnerable. It was around 1:39 p.m. inside Ward 86, on the 6th floor of the hospital. The suspect appeared calm. He spoke with Rangel, the social worker, and Rangel reportedly advised him to leave. They walked toward an elevator together. Then, without warning, he grabbed Rangel from behind, and he stabbed him repeatedly in the neck and the shoulder. The knife was later found to be a 5-inch kitchen knife. The attack was fast. brutal, sudden. By the time staff realized what was happening, chaos filled the hallway. People were screaming. Nurses ran for help. Doctors rushed from nearby rooms. And in the middle of it all, the deputy, who had been protecting the targeted doctor, heard the disturbance. He ran toward the noise. He confronted the attacker. And he restrained him before he could stab anyone else. But by then, Rangel had already suffered life-threatening injuries. The moment the deputy secured the scene, medical staff responded instantly. Rangel was rushed into an operating room in critical condition. He had multiple stab wounds. He had lost a significant amount of blood. His injuries were severe. Doctors spent hours trying to save his life. But despite their efforts, on December 5th, one day after the attack, Alberto Rangel died of his injuries. The news spread quickly among staff. Many broke down crying. Some left the hospital floor, unable to process what had just happened. Co-workers described it as a betrayal. He was there to provide services to patients. He loved his job. For him to lose his life at work, it's just not right. And they weren't wrong. He didn't die in the streets. He didn't die while doing something risky. He died in a hospital, a place that should have been safe. After Rangel died, prosecutors upgraded the charges against the suspect. What began as attempted murder became murder. The district attorney added an enhancement for using a deadly weapon. But there was one complication. The suspect himself was hospitalized. His arraignment was postponed. He was placed under psychiatric evaluation. According to authorities, he is now facing 1 count of murder, personal use of a knife in the commission of the crime, and a still active investigation. This wasn't just a violent outburst. This was a premeditated attack, according to the DA's office.
The Department of Public Health
because the suspect had the knife hidden on him before the stabbing. This is the part of the story that made headlines. The San Francisco Deputy Sheriff's Association released a statement saying this was not an unforeseeable incident. They said hospital staff had been warning the city for months, even years, that security was being reduced. Deputies were pulled from high-risk posts. Unarmed cadets were placed instead. Security became response-only instead of proactive, meaning deputies no longer stood guard in dangerous areas. They only responded after something happened. The union said plainly. Deputies, nurses, and social workers told DPH that pulling deputies off high-risk units would get someone seriously hurt or killed. On December 4th, that prediction came true. That's a strong statement. And it forced everyone to ask, could Alberto Rangel's death have been prevented? If more deputies were stationed in the hospital, if threats were taken more seriously, if security hadn't been cut, would he still be alive? Those are questions San Francisco's Department of Public Health had to answer. After the public outcry, the hospital released a statement. They said, staff safety is their highest priority. They're increasing security personnel. They're limiting access points. Weapons detection systems will be installed faster. And a full investigation is underway. But for many staff members, that wasn't enough. Because these changes were happening after someone died. After warnings were ignored. After security had already been reduced. One union representing workers said, "We owe our colleague more than grief. We owe them change." And they demanded a full overhaul of safety protocols. A few days after his death, colleagues, friends, nurses, and patients gathered outside the hospital. They held candles. They shared stories. Some cried openly. Others stood in silence. It wasn't just a memorial. It was a statement. People weren't only mourning the loss of a man. They were mourning the loss of safety, the loss of trust, the loss of the belief that hospitals are safe for workers. Someone said, "There are people alive today because of him." Another said, "He changed lives." He had so much more to give. And as they stood there together, one message echoed through the crowd. This cannot happen again. The suspect's motive is still under investigation. But here's what is known. He went looking for a specific doctor. He had made threats before. He brought a hidden knife. He approached Rangel calmly. And then he suddenly attacked. So far, authorities haven't released details about the suspect's mental state or his relationship with the doctor he threatened. But the sequence of events shows intent. He was searching for someone. When he didn't find that person, he turned his violence towards someone else. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't spontaneous. It was a deliberate act carried out inside a hospital where staff were already on alert. This case is more than a murder. It's a warning. It exposes major vulnerabilities inside hospitals, not just in San Francisco, but around the country. Healthcare workers face violence at alarming rates. Some studies show that healthcare workers are 5 times more likely to be assaulted than workers in any other industry. Yet many hospitals don't have proper security. And social workers, the people who help patients in crisis, often work alone, in small rooms, behind closed doors. This case shows what can happen when staff warnings are ignored, threats aren't fully investigated, security is reduced, and violent patients are allowed to roam freely. It raises questions like, should hospitals have mandatory weapons screening? Should high-risk units always have armed officers? Should every threat be treated as a possible red flag? And most importantly, how many tragedies will it take before things change? In all the discussions about security, policy, failures, and investigations, it's important to remember who this story is really about. A man who helped others. A man who believed in supporting people through their hardest moments. A man who made people feel seen, heard, and valued. His coworkers said, Alberto had so much more life to live. He loved his job. He was enthusiastic about helping people. He didn't deserve what happened. No healthcare worker does. His death has sparked outrage, grief, and a call for change, not just in San Francisco, but across the country. And his story will likely lead to new policies, new security measures, and new protections that save lives in the future. That is his legacy. If you're watching this, take a moment to think about the people who work in hospitals, people who show up every day to help strangers, even when the system doesn't always protect them. And if you work in healthcare yourself, thank you. Your work matters. You matter. And you deserve to be safe. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Cases like this are difficult, but they deserve to be told. If you want more true crime stories just like this one, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you're the first to know when a new investigation drops. And let me know in the comments, which case should we cover next? Your suggestions help shape the next episode on this channel. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.